Have you thought about booking one of the mega cruise ships? Stop! You could be making a big mistake. Cruise lines want you to believe newer equals better. They dazzle you with commercials of fancy water slides and floating malls. But I'm going to prove mathematically that on these ships, you're paying double for a whole lot less. I'm Gary with Optimal Cruising, bringing you fresh cruise advice, money-saving hacks, and secret strategies the cruise lines don't advertise. Today, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why booking the oldest ship in the fleet could actually be your best booking yet. I've fallen for the hype. I see the commercials of the latest, newest ships out there, and I just gotta try them. But then once I do, it doesn't seem like it's worth all the extra money they're charging me. And as much as I like to try out new things, when I look at the numbers and see that I could take 2 cruises on a slightly older ship for the same price of 1 cruise on the brand new ship, it's a no-brainer. I'm taking 2 cruises. So let's look at some of the numbers here. So one of the brand new ships from Royal Caribbean is Star of the Seas, just launched this year. And here you can see that the lowest price you can find for this ship next year on a 7-night sailing is around $1,300 per person. So for 2 people, that's $2,600. Now, that's the lowest price. The average price is more around $1,700, $1,800 per person, depending on which week you choose. You could even pay well over $2,500 per person, and that's just for an interior cabin on this brand new ship. Now let's look at a slightly older ship. So this is Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas. Now Rhapsody was just refurbished in 2024. So what you're getting is a newly polished ship. Nothing that's going to look antiquated. And when you look at the prices, the average sailing for a 7 or even 8-night cruise costs about $800 per person. And here's another example, Royal Caribbean's Allure of the Seas, refurbished this year in 2025. They even added some of the newer modern water slides onto this ship, and still you can get on board for about $800 per person for a 1-week cruise. And then there's Brilliance of the Seas, also refurbished in 2025, that you can get on for between $550 and $750 per person for a 7-night cruise. Now, I stuck with Royal Caribbean here to compare apples to apples, but if you look at any of the big cruise lines, you're going to find the same trend. The cruise lines want you to believe that newer is better, but next I'm going to show you mathematically why they're wrong. The last time I stepped into one of these mega cruise ships, something didn't feel right. It felt a lot more crowded. Now, I thought the newer, bigger ships would have a lot more space to get around. I know they take more people on board, but they're such larger ships that it shouldn't feel that way. But it does, and here's why. On these newer ships, cruise lines are trying to cram as many people as possible on board. And while they add venues and other activities, they do not expand the gross tonnage of the ship enough to accommodate all of these people. Now, gross tonnage is simply a way to measure the volume or space on a cruise ship. And I'm going to compare that to Radiance of the Seas, which has a maximum capacity of 2,466 people. Now, if you take the gross tonnage of the ship and divide it by their maximum capacity, you will see that Star of the Seas has roughly 32 gross tons per passenger, while the Radiance of the Seas has roughly 36 gross tons per passenger. That means each passenger for the Radiance has got an extra 4 gross tons of space. If you go on one of these newer ships, it's likely to be fully booked because it's getting all the attention right now. If you go on one of the older ships, chances are it won't be fully booked. So not only is there more space per person, but there will be less people than maximum capacity on those older ships in most cases. So yes, while they made these new ships a lot bigger, they added a lot more people, and you're actually much closer to your neighbor on one of the newer mega ships than you were on one of the older ships. One thing I find when I'm on an older ship is I'm usually pretty close to either the dining room or the Lido deck or some area of the ship that I'm going to spend some time in. And in order to avoid elevators, especially on Embarkation day or when it's crowded, I'll take the stairs. It's 1 or 2 flights of stairs. On the newer mega ships, when you can have 19 floors of staterooms, that's almost impossible. You're going to be waiting in long lines for the elevator. It's kind of a logistics tax for being on one of these newer mega ships. And also I noticed on the newer ships, they can't go everywhere the older ships can go. For example, I've done some sailings out of Tampa Bay. It's really nice to go under the Sky Bridge and then head off to Mexico or the Eastern Caribbean. You can do a lot of different itineraries from there, but you can't get a mega ship in there. It's too big to go under the Sky Bridge. At some ports in the Caribbean, these mega ships have to dock at industrial terminals, not at the typical cruise ports that the smaller ships can go to, which means you're further away from the action. And this is also the case in a lot of European cities. If you book a mega ship, you're going to be limited to where you can go. And when you go into some of these ports, you're going to be where the industrial ships are, and you're going to have to take a bus to get into town. Whereas if you're on a smaller cruise ship, they would pull right up to where you can walk into the center. But what about the service on these newer megaships? As time goes on, it just seems to me that cruise lines try more and more to extract extra money out of passengers. And this is almost tripled on the mega ships with the amount of people on board. There's a lot of pressure to get people to spend more money once they're on board. And to me, this makes the service seem lacking if you don't buy those extra packages, get into the specialty restaurants, have the drink package. They kind of treat you a little differently. If you've been on both types of ships, did you notice a difference in service? On my last 2 cruises on slightly older ships, by the second or third day, the bartenders, the room steward, the waiters, they all knew my name and my preferences. But on my last megaship cruise, that never happened for the entire week. In fact, on the last day, they were still wondering if I wanted iced tea or water with my dinner. Now, there is one strategy that I use, and you can use it too, to get the best of both worlds. I'm going to tell you about that next. But first, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our channel and get all of our cruising updates. What I try to do when I'm booking a cruise now is I look for a ship that's been recently refurbished. And that way I'm still getting the feel of a brand new ship. Everything looks nice and pristine. Sometimes they even add a lot of features. Royal Caribbean, for example, has been putting in new fancy water slides, flow riders on older ships, and other things that make it seem new. It also feels fresh when you walk in and you got fresh carpet all over. Your room seems clean and new. It's a great way to get the best of both worlds because you're still going to pay a lower price. For example, here's a list of 5 ships refurbished in 2025. So for the mainstream cruise lines, you've got Allure of the Seas from Royal Caribbean, and then you've got the Norwegian Jewel and the Norwegian Pearl, all gonna feel like brand new ships. And then Royal Caribbean is constantly revamping ships. Here's a list of the last 5 that they had done. So you've got Grandeur of the Seas, Enchantment of the Seas, Rhapsody of the Seas, Radiance of the Seas, and Serenade of the Seas, all done in 2024. So now's the time to book one of these older ships that have a brand new look, and you're going to get that new ship feel without all the crowds. You'll have more space and it'll feel more like a genuine cruising experience than like you're being cramped into a can of sardines. But whatever cruise ship you decide to book, the upsells are on the rise as cruise lines are trying to extract more and more money from passengers in some sneaky ways. I'll tell you all about those right here.